G'day YouTube, Warbles Online here, 21st of February 2016. Dag into the Outsiders plus first Moondog, I think.
Produced two small cherubic children, set up a lemonade stand, and then sat beside the road while Hillary pulled up in her car and went, "Oh, lemonade," bought one, the camera snapped, she went on her way, they packed up the lemonade stand and they left. This is
the truth is that Hillary is the only grown-up in this race, and it's going to be a travesty that she doesn't get the nomination of the Democrats
she
and
may
become
well, yes.
president. Look, it's looking pretty hard.
A win today in Nevada, though, so that will add the stocks. Thank you to our outsiders. Time was against us. There's been this morning Parnell Palmer-Guinness, a communications consultant and writer, Chris Wallace, historian, biographer, journalist, and Roger Franklin, editor of Quadrant Magazine Online. It's 5.5 to 10.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome to First Dog on the Moon's Guide to Modern Living. I'm the Walkley Award-winning editorial cartoonist for The Guardian Australia, First Dog on the Moon. I'm sorry, listeners, but unfortunately, this week we are unable to bring you the guide as usual. We've just been informed that for the purposes of balance, as part of the new Editorial Bias Avoidance Initiative, #TheirABC, we will be crossing live to an important party political broadcast from the ACL, the Australian Crustacean Lobster. The Australian Christian Lobster. Australian Christian Lobby. Yes, sorry about that. So we cross now to Barbara Framington Nipplechips Smythe from the ACL. Good evening. I am Barbara Framington Nipplechips Smythe, and on behalf of the Australian Christian Lobby, thank you for having me. Not in a biblical sense, obviously, but that's typical of you people who listen to the ABC, always thinking about sex, and in particular gay sex, all the time. Well, that's enough. Stop it. Here at the ACL, we believe that the looming same-sex gay marriage plebiscite is a terrible threat to the very plush velour fabric of the heterosexual families and children of Australia. We're all horribly frightened by this great, throbbing gay plebiscite which is being thrust repeatedly upon the nation. Australians need to understand that if gay people can get married, it won't be long before anyone can get married. Wallabies, microwave ovens, pot plants, lesbians, anyone who's married could be some sort of homosexual, marsupial, lesbian, electrical appliance. Harvey Norman will never be the same again. Ladies need to be ladies, and men, men, and certainly not wallabies or toasters. So, here at the Australian Christian Lobby, we've decided that while all the ladies look like ladies, except possibly Brenda in accounts, every male member of our board will need to start presenting themselves in a more obviously masculine and undeniably heterosexual manner. For example, they'll be doing things like walking with more of a swagger, speaking in a deeper voice. Ponsonby's going to grow an enormous manly beard. Cameron sold his Prius. And Lyle has been dressing in the manner of a cowboy. Now, there's a refreshingly heterosexual occupation out there on the lonely prairie, wrangling steers with a muscular crew of like-minded fellows and a trusty stallion between your thighs. He's even taken to wearing a cowboy hat, a leather vest and chaps when he goes out at night. There's commitment for you. And then there's Stanley, also a member of our board. His uncle was a policeman. He ended up with the uniform, and he's been wearing it on special occasions. Quentin found some construction worker clothing, including a jaunty helmet. He'll be wearing that. And Fernando decided he should dress like G.I. Joe, and Bruce is, for some reason, getting about as a First Nation American. But it takes all sorts. Oh, wait. What's going on? Oh, this is marvelous. Everyone showing their support for the Young Men's Christian Association. Australia is saved.
Oh dear, that's rather disturbing. That brings us to an end of Sunday Extra here on our end for this week. If you
Yeah, well, it's been one of those weeks, hasn't it? It just sort of slid past. The Americans announced that they were deeply upset that the Chinese had put some surface-to-air missiles on a Chinese island in the South China Sea, not the Spratly Islands, which have been disputed, different islands closer to China that nobody's been debating the ownership of. So the Chinese then said, oh, no, you are mistaken. We're putting up lighthouses. And then the Americans, of course, came up with the satellite photos, which makes you wonder why the Chinese bothered with the attempt at deception. And they said, yeah, look, they're definitely surface-to-air missiles with a range of about 25 miles or so. And boo-hoo and sob, and isn't it terribly wicked and a threat to the freedom of navigation and all the rest. How many American surface-to-air missiles are there on Guam? Pretty sure an airbase full of B-52s is going to have some kind of an anti-aircraft defensive capability, probably good for up to 50,000 feet. And I'd say it out to at least 30 or 40 miles. That's apart from fighter combat air patrols and interceptions and all the rest of that sort of shit. I'll bet they've got something there that can, a bloke on the ground can pull a string and something will leap out of a tube and it'll squirrel its way up into the sky and provide a whole new outlook on life for whoever is threatening to the people on the ground. Americans have got them in Guam. What side of the Pacific Ocean is Guam? Haven't the Americans got more of these things on Okinawa? What side of the Pacific Ocean is Okinawa? How close is Okinawa to China? Where is America in relation to the Pacific Ocean? What would America's reaction be if the Chinese started cruising up and down off the coast within 12 miles of California to exercise their right to free passage in international waters? So this all happened while our foreign minister, Julie Bishop, was actually in Beijing, and apparently she was doing interviews or being seen wearing proprioception enhanced compressive lycra running shorts while exercising, running around the streets of Beijing with a camera crew for publicity trailing along behind her. So it's all kind of a little bit embarrassing for Australia. Here we sit, locked into supporting America in whatever belligerent stupidity they want to do. We've been flying our Air Force Orions backwards and forwards past the Chinese Spratly Islands, having our conversations, radio conversations, reported on by, I think it was the Guardian Online, intercepted a conversation and reported it online. So on the one hand, we're cuddling up to China because they're our biggest trading partner, and we want them to buy more of our coal and more of our iron because nobody else wants it, and we're trying desperately to get them not to drop the price any further. And at the same time, we're lining up with the Americans to annoy them. While, as they said, like Bernie Sanders is not going to beat Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders might be able to beat Hillary Clinton, although Hillary Clinton won the day in the most recent primary. I don't know. I've got the feeling that in America there's a bunch of redneck middle class, generally white people, who haven't voted in their lives, or maybe they haven't voted for years, and they generally can't be bothered voting, and they probably didn't vote the last couple of times, but they've now had 8 years of having an African-American president, and that wasn't something they were comfortable with in the first place. And Barack Obama didn't suddenly turn America into a land of prosperity, which was kind of what he was advertised as going to be doing. And it looks like the Republican Party is going to have Donald Trump leading it, and it looks like the Democrats are going to give the American voters a choice between a woman who's already been 8 years in the White House when her hubby was president, and like, okay, they've had a black man. Do they want a woman now? And Bernie Sanders is Jewish or of Jewish extraction. I don't know whether he's a practicing Jew, but yeah, it is reported, and I have no reason to disbelieve the reports, but it's reported that he's Jewish. How long since a Jew sat in the White House or was elected to sit in the White House? As far as I'm aware of it, they're still jumping up and down and foaming at the mouth over what a shock it was to their system that John F. Kennedy was a Catholic. The white bracket Anglo-Saxon Protestant closed bracket house it's never had a Jew in there before as far as I'm aware, but I could be totally wrong on that. I don't know much about the American presidents, certainly not in the 19th century. I probably know who they were in the 20th century, and I'm pretty sure that none of them were Jews. But there is an anti-Semitic vein or strain in American society among the working and middle classes, and I think Donald Trump's going to tap into that one. I think as soon as Bernie Sanders gets the Democratic nomination as candidate, that's when the comb-over is going to start coming out with the one-line anti-Semitic jokes. And I think that'll be enough to get him into the presidency. And the idea of Donald Trump with the launch codes is pretty scary. The Pope telling him that he's not a Christian, well, it depends on what your point of view of what a Christian is. The Pope is coming from the point of view that you should share your food and share your drink, and if somebody smacks you in the face, you turn the other cheek and let them have a crack at that one. The Pope's coming from the point of view of thou shalt not kill, judge not thy fellow human, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Donald Trump's a Presbyterian. They're the sort of people who they obey the ancient biblical tradition of opening their doors at sundown so that any hungry travellers can come and beg a feed, but they do it standing at the doorstep with one hand on the sword so that anybody with the temerity to try and invoke their biblical privilege will get chopped up as they walk up the front steps. Presbyterians are known for their tight-fistedness with money when it comes to giving it away, and their ability to hang on to it. Not all of them. My father was raised Presbyterian. He didn't practice religion much in his adult life, but he used to run around paying other people's electricity or rates bills if he heard that they were financially hard up, and he'd do that anonymously. I haven't had the resources to copy that trick, but it's a good one. And he was a Presbyterian by raising, by education. So yeah, some Presbyterians are generous, but a lot of them tend to be pretty tight-fisted. God helps those that helps themselves, pretty much. That's the attitude. So Donald Trump as a president, that's a scary thought. It's a really scary thought. And the fact that America can't manage to hold a country in the face of a bunch of peasants with fertilizer bombs doesn't bode well if they're going to try and assuage the blow to their ego by having a fight with, what is it, 1.5 billion Chinese, or is it 2 billion by now? I don't know. There's a lot of people who do what they're told when the Chinese government commands. In fact, I think they got 30 million more men than they have women between the ages of 15 and 35, what you might call military fighting age. So if they really wanted to, they could raise a pretty big army. Don't know how many boats they've got, but pretty sure they can build a boat or two in China if they put their mind to it. They've certainly bought enough coal and steel to have the wherewithal to make a few boats. We'll see what we will see. Warbles on all at the YouTube. Ciao.